I never thought a simple phone call could change my life. But when I dialed my boss that morning, sick and barely able to sit up, I didn't realize it would set off a chain of events that would lead to both my greatest loss and my greatest victory. I guess I should start at the beginning, though, because none of this would make sense without understanding who I was before it all went down. My name is Jenna, and for 6 years, I worked as a marketing specialist for Rickman Solutions, a small but profitable advertising agency. Rickman Solutions wasn't just my job, it was my life. I gave it everything, late nights, skipped holidays, even a few personal relationships sacrificed along the way. I genuinely believed in what we were doing. Rickman himself, the company's owner and self-proclaimed visionary, liked to brag that he'd built the company from nothing. People like us, he'd say in team meetings, we don't stop. We don't take breaks. We don't let the world tell us when to slow down. At the time, I admired his work ethic. He seemed fearless, untouchable, a guy who'd do whatever it took to succeed. But looking back, I see the cracks in the facade. Rickman wasn't some genius entrepreneur. He was just a man who didn't care about anyone but himself. The warning signs were always there. He'd talk about the company being like family, but when someone asked for a raise, he'd lecture them about loyalty. When an employee had a personal emergency, he'd remind them that work comes first. And when a coworker of mine requested maternity leave, Rickman made her life so unbearable she quit before she ever got the chance to meet her baby. Still, I stayed. I thought if I worked hard enough, played by the rules, I'd be rewarded. But life doesn't work that way, does it? The day it all fell apart, I woke up feeling like I'd been hit by a truck. My body ached, my head throbbed, and even the light from my bedside lamp felt like daggers in my eyes. I checked my phone, 6:45 a.m. If I got up now, I could make it to the office by 8:30, as usual. But even the thought of standing made my stomach churn. I needed to call in sick. I hated doing it, it wasn't like me to let my team down. But this wasn't just a sniffle or a headache. This was something worse. Rickman answered on the second ring. Rickman Solutions, this is Rickman. His voice was clipped, impatient, like always. Hi, it's Jenna, I said, my voice raspy. Listen, I'm not feeling well today. I think I've got a fever. You know we're in the middle of a major campaign, right? He interrupted. I blinked, caught off guard. I know, but I'm really sick. I just need 1 day to rest, Anne. No, he said firmly. We don't have time for this. Everyone's counting on you. Be professional. Be professional. The words stung more than they should have. It wasn't like I'd ever missed a deadline or left my coworkers hanging. If anything, I'd been the one picking up the slack when other people dropped the ball. But here he was, making me feel like I was some kind of slacker for needing a single sick day. Rickman, I said, forcing myself to stay calm, I can't come in today. I'm really sorry, but... Fine, he snapped. Do what you want. The line went dead before I could respond. I stared at my phone, the guilt already creeping in. Maybe I should have just pushed through it. Maybe I could have made it work. But as I tried to sit up, my vision blurred, and I knew I'd made the right call. I spent the rest of the day in bed, drifting in and out of sleep, trying to ignore the nagging feeling in the pit of my stomach. The next morning, I woke up feeling a little better. The fever had broken, though my body still felt like it had been run through a wringer. I dragged myself out of bed, determined to make up for lost time. I showed up at the office an hour early, ready to prove to Rickman, and myself, that I was still a valuable member of the team. But as soon as I walked through the door, I could feel the tension in the air. My coworkers avoided eye contact, their heads buried in their monitors. Even the usual chatter by the coffee machine was missing. Jenna, Rickman called from across the office. My office. Now. I swallowed hard and followed him, my heart pounding in my chest. His office was cold and impersonal, just like him, bare walls, a sleek black desk, and a single framed photo of himself shaking hands with some corporate bigwig. "Close the door," he said, not bothering to look up from his computer. I did as he asked, feeling the walls close in around me. "I'm letting you go," he said bluntly, finally looking up. I blinked, sure I hadn't heard him right. "What?" "You're fired," he said, leaning back in his chair. The words hit me like a punch to the gut. "But, why?" I managed to choke out. "You abandoned your responsibilities yesterday," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "I can't have unreliable people on my team." Unreliable? The word rang in my ears. I'd given 6 years of my life to this company. I'd skipped birthdays, weddings, and even my own sister's graduation for the sake of the team. And now, because I'd taken one sick day, I was being thrown out like garbage. "Rickman, I've worked late nights, weekends, I've gone above and beyond for this company," I said, my voice shaking. "You can't just." "I can and I have," he said, cutting me off. "Pack your things." I walked out of his office in a daze, the weight of his words pressing down on me. My co-workers avoided my gaze as I gathered my things, stuffing 6 years of my life into a single cardboard box. By the time I left the building, the numbness had started to wear off, replaced by a deep, burning anger. This wasn't just unfair, it was cruel. I'd given everything to that company, and Rickman had thrown me away without a second thought. I sat in my car for what felt like hours, gripping the steering wheel so hard my knuckles turned white. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I just sat there, staring at the office building, replaying the past 24 hours over and over in my head. And that's when I decided, I wasn't going to let Rickman get away with this. He thought I was replaceable. Fine. I'd show him just how wrong he was. After losing my job, I spent the first few days in a haze. I barely got out of bed. I ignored calls from friends and family who had heard about what happened. I felt humiliated. For 6 years, I had built my life around Rickman's solutions, believing that my loyalty and hard work would pay off. Now, I had nothing to show for it except a pit in my stomach and a gnawing sense of betrayal. But as the shock wore off, it was replaced by something else, anger. The more I thought about what Rickman had done, the clearer it became. This wasn't just about me calling in sick. He'd been waiting for an excuse. I realized it wasn't just my effort he didn't care about, it was anyone's. Rickman didn't see people, he saw tools. Replaceable tools. The bitterness inside me turned into fuel. I wasn't going to lie in bed and feel sorry for myself. If Rickman wanted to treat me like I didn't matter, I'd make sure he understood just how much I'd contributed to his success. The first step was figuring out where I stood. As I dug through my emails and old files, a particular name kept popping up, Vanessa Caldwell. Vanessa was the marketing director for Revell Luxury, a high-end fashion and lifestyle brand, and Rickman Solutions' biggest client by far. Securing that account had been my biggest career achievement. I had spent months building a relationship with Vanessa, earning her trust and eventually landing the deal that brought millions into Rickman's company. The truth was, I knew Vanessa far better than Rickman did. He rarely attended the client meetings I worked so hard to prepare for. Half the time, he didn't even bother to read the campaign briefs before presenting them. I had covered for him more times than I could count, smoothing over his arrogance with charm and professionalism. Without Vanessa's account, Rickman Solutions wouldn't have survived. That thought gave me pause. Rickman hadn't just fired me, he had fired the person responsible for maintaining his most lucrative relationship. Did he even realize how fragile that relationship was without me? I stared at Vanessa's name in my contacts list, debating whether I should reach out. What would I even say? That I had been fired and was now scrambling to figure out my next move? No. I needed to approach this carefully. If I called her, it wouldn't be to complain or vent. It would be to remind her why she had trusted me in the first place. I picked up the phone, my hands trembling slightly, and dialed. Vanessa Caldwell, she answered briskly. Hi, Vanessa. It's Jenna. There was a pause on the other end of the line, and for a moment, I wondered if she even remembered me. But then her tone softened. Jenna. It's been a while. How are you? I hesitated. Actually, not great. I'm no longer with Rickman Solutions. Oh, she said, clearly surprised. I'm sorry to hear that. What happened? I kept my explanation vague, focusing on how I wanted to explore new opportunities rather than dwelling on the truth. But as we talked, I could sense her interest. Vanessa had always appreciated my straightforward approach and creative ideas, and she made it clear that my departure from Rickman Solutions didn't change her opinion of me. I have to say, she admitted, it's been challenging since you left. I wasn't going to bring it up, but the last few meetings with Rickman haven't been great. I raised an eyebrow. Really? What's been going on? Well, let's just say his presentation skills aren't exactly inspiring, she said with a dry laugh. And the campaigns your team has been delivering lately feel rushed, like no one really understands our brand. I'm not sure how much longer we'll keep working with them if things don't improve. Her words lit a spark inside me. Ravel was unhappy with Rickman. This was my chance. I'm sorry to hear that, I said carefully. If there's ever anything I can do to help, please don't hesitate to reach out. I'm freelancing now, and I'd love to work with you again, on my own terms. There was a moment of silence before she spoke. You know, she said slowly, that's actually not a bad idea. Let me think about it and get back to you. When we hung up, I felt a surge of hope for the first time since I'd been fired. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was a start. With Vanessa's words in mind, I started taking small, deliberate steps to rebuild my career. First, I updated my LinkedIn profile, emphasizing my role in landing and managing high-profile accounts like Ravel. Then, I reached out to former clients, coworkers, and anyone else in my network who might be interested in hiring me as a freelance marketing consultant. The responses were encouraging. Many of the people I reached out to were shocked to hear I'd been let go and were eager to work with me again. Within a few weeks, I had lined up enough freelance projects to cover my bills and keep myself busy. It wasn't the same as having a full-time job, but it gave me the freedom to focus on what really mattered, my long-term plan. Rickman thought he could replace me, but he didn't understand what made me valuable. I wasn't just another employee, I was the connection between his company and its most important clients. Without me, those connections were fragile at best. I stayed in touch with Vanessa, keeping our conversations friendly and professional. I didn't pressure her or push too hard, I wanted her to see for herself how much she had relied on me, and how much Rickman's company had declined without my influence. A few weeks later, she called me out of the blue. Jenna, she said, we need to talk. Her tone was serious, almost urgent, and my heart raced as I waited for her to continue. We've decided to terminate our contract with Rickman Solutions, she said. I've already spoken to my team, and we all agree, we'd much rather work with you directly. Can we set up a meeting to discuss terms? I nearly dropped the phone. This was it. This was my chance to take back control. Absolutely, I said, trying to keep the excitement out of my voice. I'll send over my availability right away. When we hung up, I let out a breath I hadn't realized I was holding. It was happening. Everything I had been working toward was finally falling into place. But I wasn't just going to take Rickman's biggest client, I was going to build something better. Something he could never take away from me. When Vanessa officially offered me the Ravel account, I knew it was a turning point, not just for my career but for my entire life. For years, I had worked behind the scenes, pouring my blood, sweat, and tears into someone else's dream. Now, I had the chance to build something for myself, on my own terms. I wasn't going to let that opportunity slip away. But taking over Ravel's account wasn't as simple as flipping a switch. There were contracts to sign, legalities to navigate, and most importantly, I needed a plan to show Vanessa that I was ready to take on the responsibility of managing a high-profile brand as an independent consultant. I worked around the clock, pulling together a comprehensive proposal. It wasn't just about flashy ideas or surface-level solutions. I outlined how I would help Ravel expand its digital footprint, improve its social media engagement, and connect with a younger, trendier audience while maintaining its core identity as a luxury brand. The meeting with Vanessa and her team was scheduled for a Thursday morning, and I barely slept the night before. By the time I walked into Ravel's sleek, glass-walled conference room, I was running on a mix of adrenaline and sheer determination. Vanessa greeted me with a warm smile. "Jenna, it's good to see you." "You too," I said, shaking her hand. I glanced around the room at the other team members, designers, strategists, and executives, all waiting to hear what I had to say. I took a deep breath and launched into my presentation. Slide after slide, I laid out my vision for Ravel's future, answering questions and addressing concerns with confidence. I could feel the energy in the room shift as I spoke. By the time I wrapped up, even the most skeptical-looking executive was nodding along. Vanessa smiled as I finished. "Jenna, I think we've made the right choice." Hearing those words felt like a weight lifting off my shoulders. I walked out of that meeting with a signed contract and a renewed sense of purpose. Winning the Ravel account was a huge victory, but I knew it was just the beginning. If I wanted to build a successful business, I needed more than one client. I reached out to other companies I had worked with during my time at Rickman Solutions, offering my services as a consultant. Many of them remembered me fondly and were eager to reconnect. Within weeks, I had a handful of clients and a steady stream of work. I operated out of my small apartment, balancing project deadlines with the overwhelming task of setting up a legitimate business, registering an LLC, opening a business account, and figuring out taxes. But as busy as I was, I couldn't stop thinking about Rickman. I heard through the grapevine that things weren't going well for him. Without Ravel's account, his company had taken a massive financial hit. Layoffs had already started, and morale among his remaining employees was at an all-time low. Part of me felt a grim satisfaction. Rickman had underestimated me, and now he was paying the price. But another part of me, the part that still remembered how it felt to sit in his office and hear him say, "Pack your things," wanted more. It wasn't just about watching him fail. I wanted him to know why he was failing. One afternoon, I got an unexpected email from an old coworker, Sarah. She was one of the few people at Rickman Solutions I had stayed in touch with after I was fired. "Hey Jenna," the email began. "I don't know if you've heard, but things are getting really bad here. Rickman's been in a terrible mood ever since Ravel left, and he's taking it out on everyone. He's cutting budgets, slashing salaries, and even threatening to fire people for the smallest mistakes. Honestly, I don't think the company's going to survive much longer." I stared at the screen, her words stirring something inside me. Rickman was finally facing the consequences of his arrogance and greed. But Sarah's email wasn't just an update, it was an opportunity. I hit reply. "Hey Sarah, thanks for letting me know. If things get worse and you're thinking about leaving, let me know. I've been expanding my client base and might have some opportunities for you." Her response came within minutes. "Are you serious? Because I'd quit tomorrow if I had something else lined up." I smiled. "Let's talk," I typed back. Over the next few weeks, I quietly began recruiting some of Rickman's best employees. People like Sarah, who were talented, hardworking, and fed up with Rickman's toxic leadership. I didn't poach them outright, I simply let them know that I was building something new, something better, and that there would always be a place for them if they wanted to join me. By the time Sarah and two other former coworkers officially came on board, my small consulting business had grown into a full-fledged agency. We worked out of a co-working space downtown, and every day, I was reminded of how much I loved what I did. The irony wasn't lost on me. Rickman had fired me because he thought I was replaceable. But now, the people who had once worked for him were helping me build something that was starting to rival his own company. Then, one day, I got the call that changed everything. It was Sarah. "You're not going to believe this," she said, barely able to contain her excitement. "What's going on?" I asked. "I just heard from one of my friends who still works at Rickman Solutions. Apparently, Rickman's been scrambling to find new clients, but no one wants to work with him. Word's gotten around about how he treats his employees, and his reputation is in the toilet. He's desperate." I leaned back in my chair, processing what she had just said. Rickman was desperate. That meant he was vulnerable. For a moment, I considered letting it go. I had moved on, built a new life, and proved to myself, and to him, that I wasn't replaceable. Did I really need to take things further? But then I thought about all the sleepless nights I had spent working to make his company successful, all the sacrifices I had made, and the way he had tossed me aside without a second thought. No. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. It was time to finish what I had started. The call came late on a Tuesday afternoon. I was in my office, well, the co-working space I now called an office, finalizing a proposal for a potential client when my phone buzzed. The name on the screen stopped me cold. Rickman. For a moment, I just stared at it. Part of me wanted to send it straight to voicemail, but curiosity got the better of me. I picked up. "Jenna speaking," I said, keeping my tone neutral. "Jenna, it's Rickman." His voice was different, strained, almost desperate. I leaned back in my chair, a smirk forming on my lips. "Rickman. This is unexpected. What can I do for you?" There was a long pause, and I could hear him exhale heavily on the other end of the line. "I think we should meet." "Meet?" I repeated, feigning confusion. "Why would we need to do that?" "Because," he said, his tone growing sharper, "we need to talk. Face to face. It's about Revel." I couldn't help but laugh. "Revel? You mean the account you lost months ago?" "I'm not sure what that has to do with me." "It has everything to do with you," he snapped, his composure slipping for just a moment. Then he took a deep breath and tried again. "Look, Jenna. I know what's been going on. I know you've been taking my clients, and my employees. I'm not calling to argue. I'm calling to make you an offer." Now, that was unexpected. An offer? From him? "I'm listening," I said, my curiosity piqued. "Let's meet in person," he insisted. "Tomorrow, 10 a.m., at Café Verona downtown. I'll explain everything then." I hesitated, wondering what his angle was. But the thought of seeing him squirm was too tempting to pass up. "Fine," I said. "Tomorrow at 10. The next morning, I arrived at Café Verona 10 minutes early. I wanted to make sure I was already seated when Rickman arrived. The power dynamic mattered, and I wanted him to know I wasn't the same person he had fired all those months ago. When he walked in, I almost didn't recognize him. Gone was the cocky, self-assured man I'd worked for. His suit was rumpled, his tie slightly askew, and there were dark circles under his eyes. He looked like someone who hadn't slept in weeks, and judging by what I'd heard, that was probably true. "Jenna," he said, forcing a smile as he sat down across from me. "Thanks for meeting me." I didn't bother returning the smile. "Get to the point, Rickman. What do you want?" He sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. "Look, I know things ended badly between us. I made a mistake, okay? Firing you, it was impulsive. I wasn't thinking clearly. I raised an eyebrow. That's the understatement of the year. I'm serious, he said, leaning forward. You were the backbone of my company, Jenna. I see that now. And I want to make things right. Make things right? I repeated, laughing. You fired me because I took one sick day, Rickman. And now you're sitting here, broke and desperate, asking for my help. You've got some nerve. I'm not asking for your help, he said quickly. I'm offering you an opportunity. I crossed my arms. I'm listening. He took a deep breath, as if bracing himself. I want to sell the company. To you. For a moment, I thought I'd misheard him. You want to sell me Rickman Solutions? Yes, he said, his voice tense. The truth is, the company's in bad shape. Losing Ravel was a huge blow, and the other clients, well, they've been leaving too. But the infrastructure is still there. The name still has value. You've already taken most of the business anyway, so why not take the rest? You could rebuild it under your leadership. I stared at him, trying to gauge whether he was serious. Was this his idea of a negotiation? And what exactly would I be paying for, Rickman? I asked. A sinking ship with no clients and no employees? You're out of your mind. His face flushed, but he kept his composure. We both know you're good at what you do, Jenna. You could turn it around. And I'd be willing to sell at a very reasonable price. I let the silence hang between us for a moment, watching him squirm. Then I leaned forward, my eyes locked on his. You don't get it, do you? I said quietly. I don't need Rickman Solutions. I've already built something better. Your name is worthless to me. Your company is worthless to me. The only reason I agreed to this meeting was to see how far you'd fallen, and to remind you that you brought this on yourself. His face fell, the last shred of his confidence crumbling before my eyes. Jenna, please, he said, his voice barely above a whisper. I'm begging you. If you don't buy it, I'll lose everything. For a brief moment, I almost felt sorry for him. Almost. But then I remembered the way he had fired me without a second thought, the way he had humiliated me in front of my coworkers. I stood up, grabbing my purse. Good luck, Rickman, I said, my voice cold. You're going to need it. I thought that would be the end of it. But a week later, I got an email that turned everything on its head. The subject line read, Confidential, Legal Matter. I opened it, my stomach sinking as I scanned the message. It was from Vanessa Caldwell's legal team. They had uncovered some troubling information about Rickman Solutions, specifically, about how Rickman had been falsifying campaign results to inflate his company's performance metrics. I read the email twice, my mind racing. If this was true, Rickman hadn't just been incompetent, he had been breaking the law. Vanessa's team wanted to know if I had any evidence that could corroborate their findings. Apparently, Rickman had been using fake data to overcharge Ravel for services they never actually received. It was fraud, plain and simple. I sat back in my chair, the pieces clicking into place. Rickman wasn't just desperate, he was cornered. The sale of his company hadn't been about survival, it had been about covering his tracks before the truth came out. This was bigger than me, bigger than revenge. Rickman had put my name, my reputation, and my work on the line to pull off his scheme. And now, he was about to face the consequences. I picked up the phone and called Vanessa. Vanessa, I said, my voice steady. I think it's time we take Rickman down for good. A month later, the headlines broke. Advertising CEO indicted for fraud. Rickman's name was everywhere, his face plastered across every major news outlet. The investigation revealed years of fraudulent activity, and the evidence, much of which came from my own files, was overwhelming. As I watched his empire crumble, I felt no pity. This wasn't just about revenge, it was about justice. Rickman had thought he could walk all over the people who worked for him, but in the end, it was those same people who had brought him down. And me? I didn't just survive, I thrived. My agency grew, my reputation soared, and I became known as the woman who took on a tyrant and won. Rickman once told me I was replaceable. Turns out, he was the one who never mattered at all.